Hi, my name is Jito Kayumba. I would have loved to be there in person, to be with you at the Conservation Careers Fair hosted by the WCP. I've had to travel for work, but I could not miss the opportunity to be available to make this recording so that I can be present in one way or another and communicate ways in which we can together strengthen the conservation space, and then also many of you can join and be participants in the conservation of our country. What I wanted to be as a kid, when I was asked, what do you want to be when you grow up, was always a businessman. And it sounds very generic, but ultimately I was pursuing a couple of things. One was independence. Two was anything that makes a reasonable income. Three is being able to make an impact on society, because obviously business people are the kind of people that essentially have those elements of independence. They make good money, they have a massive impact, and of course they are leaders within communities. First and foremost, I studied political science. The question is why? As a kid, I felt so aware of the difficulties that surround society. I saw poverty, when I'm sitting in a vehicle being driven to school and I'm seeing people living in poverty, I thought to myself, particularly I must say, when you see a child your age who's walking, who's barefoot, or who's really in a very difficult circumstance, you can't help but recognize the inequities that exist within society and wanting to be part of what essentially creates a solution. But following that, I was privileged to have worked in companies that were involved in the sector I ended up working in, which was venture capital, working in finance and beginning to be exposed in that realm and taking courses, going on to do my MBA, which was heavy on finance, leadership and other elements. So that's ultimately what drove me into the sector, but beyond education. And one thing that is important for people to appreciate, that education is important, but the character and the activities that we embark on outside of a formalized learning environment is what we learn away from school. So I joined Kukula Capital, basically being a venture capital firm, and many people ask, what is venture capital? It's really a business model where a fund manager or a financier or financial institution essentially accumulates resources from investors in order to invest in companies by way of providing equity. Equity is shareholding. It's where you are not lending money, like in Congole, right? It's where you go in and you have a specific share based on the amount that you're putting in. And the way you make your money back is where, if the company makes money, you obviously get a dividend because you're a shareholder. And of course, the continuous growth of the company essentially means that the value of the company goes up. That also is another means of making money because you do exit at some point. So currently, I am a special assistant to the President for Finance and Investment. And what I essentially do, as the name suggests, is that I'm an assistant. I make life easier for him in the area in which I'm an expert in, which is finance and investment, associated with investment, foreign direct investment, private sector investment, private sector growth, capital raising, investor relations. There are multiple elements associated with that. The key really is to ensure that the presidency and the president, through his office, is implementing programs and crafting policies that essentially allow for a stronger platform for investment to take place. Right now, we're at a very exciting time in our history because government is paying close attention to green investments, green financing, sustainability, conservation. This is the reason why the president created the Ministry of Green Economy. It's the first ever ministry of its kind in our country that's devoted to the green economy, recognizing that green element, obviously green represents sustainability. Economy is obviously part of the greater economy, because there's a recognition that you can be sustainable, you can do things right for the environment, you can create an ecosystem that not only is sustainable, but that is profitable, that is managed properly, that has social and environmental factors that are strongly taken into consideration. So we're excited to be able to engage in activities that are sustainable, that essentially pay due respect to the environment, where conservation is a very important element. And with that, you're looking at investments in multiple sectors where, of course, in the beginning, there was fossil fuel sort of power usage, like diesel and among others, and even within the energy space, coal and the others. They are certainly needed because they are part of what baseload is all about from an energy perspective. But renewable energy is one of the key mitigating elements that we're looking at. And what is extremely exciting right now is that Zambia is getting more renewable energy investment than ever before. Currently, we've got over 3,500 megawatts of installed capacity of power as a country, from the time of independence to now, with a significant amount having come from Kariba. And of course, there's new investments coming from solar. For example, Mazda, which is one of the largest renewable energy investment companies in the world from the UAE, sitting out of Abu Dhabi, have partnered with ZESCO to build 2,000 megawatts of solar power. It's the biggest energy investment in the history of this country from an investment perspective. Yes, Kafir Gorge Lower was a little over $2 billion as a loan facility, but this is an actual investment where an investor is plowing money into it, where there's, where we're not borrowing, which is something we're extremely proud of, and that in itself is sustainable. And with that, it means that what we produce in terms of power, which goes to power our mine development, it means that it increases the green element of even mining. So ESG, really being environmental, social, and governance, is really a manner. I look at it as a classification of the way an investment is structured to pay attention to those three factors, ensuring that one, you're respecting that the environment is being treated with the respect it duly deserves, that you're not only doing no harm to it, but you're actually adding value, that you are greening up an investment, whether you're planting new trees, for example, where there's any investment taking place. So you're actually adding further value to the environment, or you're ensuring that there's some form of recycling taking place, or you're handling materials in a manner that is safe, and so on. Of course, from a social perspective, that captures jobs, that captures skills development, and of course, governance is important because you have to be ethical, you have to do things in a manner that respects rules, laws, and you are essentially not engaged in practices where there's child labor and things of that nature. So generally speaking, debt restructuring has been an extraordinary milestone in this country's history. We've been burdened by debt for many years. There's been multiple attempts to get to a point where debt is restructured. Imagine being an individual who's in an enormous amount of debt, which far exceeds your capacity to pay it off, that your income is dwarfed by the quantum of debt that you have to pay. That's the quandary that Zambia was in. I mean, for me personally, I love making sure that I'm interacting with yourselves in communities and different platforms, because I know that I can do my job a lot better knowing that I've listened to what the people have said, the people yourselves who've employed people like me, in order to craft those policies that essentially improve a given sector. And in this particular instance, we're talking about conservation, we're talking about sustainability. We want to get to know more about that. And of course, with the presence of the Ministry of Green Economy being an institution who's charged with this very important mandate. We want you to be more interactive, which you already are to some extent, but there's so much more we can do together. Governance is a shared operation between government officials, citizens, and multiple stakeholders. I love the statement, the future is green. It's green because, first and foremost, there's an energy transition. The world is changing. The world has recognized that, including, by the way, countries who have essentially transformed their economy and become wealthy on the back of fossil fuels, like the countries in the Middle East. They're actually leading the way in a change towards a greener future. We're talking moving away from fossil fuels and other non-renewable energy sources towards renewable energy. And with that, it excites me as a Zambian, and should excite all of us, because Zambia is home to a significant amount of battery metals, which are necessary as part of the green revolution. But in addition to that, vehicles like electric vehicles, which are part of the energy transition, copper, cobalt, you name it, nickel, manganese, are all here in our country. So not only is it creating value within the mining sector, which we can do sustainably, but we can contribute to the green future for the world. The world's ambition is to get to a point where every car is green, every form of energy is renewable. And of course, we live in a society, in a world where conservation, sustainability is at the core as part of our daily practice. It's embedded within our culture and in the way we operate, generally speaking. So with the resources we have in our country, with the recognition of the need for us to be more sustainable, Zambia not only will contribute to a greener world, but Zambia will be a beneficiary of the need of the world having a requirement for various green resources, which we have. So this is truly a great and incredible time to be a Zambian citizen. It's an extraordinary time to be pursuing a career within conservation, and together we can truly make the world green. So my message to the youth of Zambia who are interested in a career in conservation, first and foremost have to recognize and appreciate that conservation, sustainability, and all the elements associated with it are really part and parcel of what we as young people, and I put myself in the equation, must care about, must think about, because the future is yours, because you've got so much years ahead of you. And with that, we need to ensure that what we do in our daily lives essentially leaves the world better than we ultimately find it. And with that being said, look at conservation really as a labor of love, as a requirement, as something that we must all, regardless of the sector that we're in, that we have to pay attention to. Whether you're in mining, whether you're in agriculture, whether you're a banker, think green. Think about the world, as it is, but of course with a view to make it as progressive as possible. I'm here speaking to you obviously in the capacity as a special assistant to the president. I don't have a conservation background, but I know enough to care about it and work with it. So we want more conservation professionals to talk to miners, to talk to agriculturalists, or anyone in any other sector, in order to make them much more alive to the needs of conservation, and to ensure that not only are we building this economy, creating jobs, generating wealth, changing the social fabric in a positive way, that we are doing it in a sustainable way that leaves this country better than we found it.